Restaurant Unstoppable. What the most successful restaurateurs know that you don't. Let's start talking about this new version of you. You know, you go to the Barbara
Brennan School of Healing,
and you just kind of get a little bit more centered. You're thinking holistically now.
Mm-hmm.
What's going through your mind? Because you said it took 5 years before opening Found, right? Were you saying were you done with the industry? Like, just take us to that point. What's going through your mind?
I started Barbara Brennan. I also was in the Chicago School of Massage Therapy because, being the go-getter that I am, when I started Barbara Brennan, they said we could not practice unless we had a complementary practice already. So I figured, Barbara Brennan's 4 years. I can do Chicago School of Massage Therapy in 1 year, have that as my complementary practice, and start working. I was also working, in those days, 80, 90 hours a week in the restaurant business as director of operations of KDK Restaurant Group. And in June of my first year, at the end of my first year in Barbara Brennan, I met my husband.
Okay.
And 2 weeks after I met him, I said, I'm quitting my restaurant job. And I never thought about working in a restaurant again. I mean, in fact, when I sold Mirador, I never even wanted to eat in a restaurant again. I mean, it was just like, keep me away. I don't even want to think about it. And I was 37 when we met. So tick-tock, we had 3 girls really, really quickly. Best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And was a stay-at-home mom until my oldest was 12. And they're less than 3 years apart. But as they started getting older, I started kind of just thinking about who I was going to be when I grow up. And
at the age of 40.
Exactly. And hopefully we're always thinking that, right?
Always growing. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. How boring would life be?
Exactly.
Getting stuck in whatever we think is fine.
Absolutely.
So to tie the two time frames together, one of my very, very best guests at Mirador back in the 90s was a guy by the name of Art Smith.
Okay.
And Art worked for Amtrak.
Okay.
And he was the chef on Amtrak.
Okay.
And he loved Mirador. He'd sit in we only had 42 seats. He sat in the back table, a little deuce against the wall. He was friends with Chef Carol, and we got to know each other. Fast forward, Art Smith became Oprah Winfrey's chef.
I was gonna say, I know that name. I think he's on my radar. I'm pretty sure he's on my spreadsheet.
Art became big.
Yeah.
And we hadn't talked in 100 years. And somehow, out of the blue, we connected. Now I've already had children. I haven't worked in ages. He and his partner, Jesus, come over for lunch. He calls me the next day and he said, let's open an organic restaurant. And I thought, sure, let's do it. And so for a year, I started working on this concept. What I realized was it was never going to be with him because it was just an idea he had one day. And I kept trying to keep him in the loop, and we did meet every now and then. But it became my concept.
Yeah.
And although I didn't go the distance on organic, because I have so many opinions on organic, but sustainable, being local, buying from people I know, knowing how they raise, their produce or their animals became way more important than if they had a certification. And that is eventually what became Found Kitchen, where we're sitting now. Mm-hmm. And so it was from that first lunch with Art that I started dabbling.
So that was like the spark.
That was the spark.
Yeah.
And, looked at restaurants in the city, looked at spaces, but I really took a ton of time. And because I'd had so much time off, I was no longer stuck in that restaurant box of what things had to be. And people would say, when I tell them my idea, oh, that's not a restaurant. You can't do that. That's not a concept. And I mean, where we're sitting right now, this is not what Found Kitchen looks like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
There would be tons of couches and alternative seating. And, right now we're still socially distanced and we need to maximize our tables. So that's what happened. And it was that time frame that it was such an opportunity to create and not have pressure. And it was all of it that is, I believe, what made me happy in what I do.
Yeah.
For
So
the
do you think
first
it was the
time,
pressure that made it? Because there's no pressure now. Was it because there was
Because
so much-
I decided. Well, one, we were having financial issues in my family, my husband and I. And so it started as really exciting, like, oh, I could do a restaurant. But it grew into, I not only want to be, but I need to be and make a financial contribution to our family. And this is what I knew. So for the first time, money mattered to me. I think growing up with all that privilege, I had so much shame around money that I shunned it. I really didn't have the value of $1. I never needed to have the value of $1. I pretended that I didn't have money, yet I always had something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And so now as an adult, I have children. I have no money to fall back on. And I have a great skill and something that I've always been great at. And once the idea grew out of me, I was unstoppable.
Yeah, you had that vision, right?
And it took all of that for me to grow up.
Yeah.